Hello and welcome back to part 3 of Cupcake Addiction's Giant Cupcake Basics series. If you've been following us through part 1 and part 2, we've learned how to make our giant patty pan in part 1, and in part 2 we've learned how to bake and extract from the giant cupcake case this lovely cupcake I have in front of me. This will be the final part in our Giant Cupcake Basics series. Today we're going to be learning how to carve and layer our giant cupcake, how to insert it into that lovely giant patty pan that we made earlier, and how to crumb coat it so that it's ready to decorate and design in any flavour you like. Tools and equipment that I will be using today. I have a large serrated bread knife. I'll be using that to carve the cupcake. I have one angled pallet knife. It's a cake decorator's tool. If you don't have one of those, you can just use the back of a bread knife. And I have a spatula. I'm going for a small size spatula today, but a regular size is fine if you don't have one. Obviously I have the two parts of our giant cupcake. I have just a plain bowl to put any offcuts into. I have a clean bottom half of the silicone giant cupcake mould that we baked the giant cupcake in. I have my pre-made giant patty pan ready to go, and I've also pre-made a batch of our perfectly pipeable buttercream frosting. We do have a tutorial on that frosting, so feel free to have a look at that if you'd like to learn how to make that frosting. Alright, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to shave away any dark edges or well-cooked edges. So we don't want to waste any of the cake. We're just going to shave away anything that looks a little bit dark there. I'm going to discard those dark edges. We don't want those. Okay, with the base of your giant cupcake, we want to cut away these edges. We're going to cut approximately 1/2 centimetre straight down the sides, so you can see that. Now I don't like to waste cake, so I'm going to be popping this cake in my bowl, and I'm going to use it to make some Jaffa cake pops that I'm making later today. Let's see, I'm just going around the cake. Alright, so we've taken the edges off that giant cupcake. I'm just going to carve the top flat. Don't worry if you don't get this 100% perfectly flat. We can do some neatening up of it a little bit later. Notice how I'm just supporting the cupcake on this side as I carve across. Be careful obviously not to cut yourself, but I just want to make sure that none of these lovely fresh parts of the cupcake come away as I'm applying pressure to it. Lastly, for the base, I'm going to cut it horizontally about halfway down the cupcake. So about here, I'm going to cut it straight across. No need to measure, it doesn't have to be exact, but just so that we've got two lovely halves. Moving on to the top now, I'll pop my offcuts in my lovely bowl, waiting for those Jaffa cake pops. Now with the top, I always like to take away this edge. Now I do that before I cut anything flat, so I'm actually going to hold it on an angle against the board, almost like a spinning top, and I'm just going to cut away that very edge. Just takes away any of those crunchy edges in the cake that people might come across. I'm a firm believer that cake should be lovely and soft and moist, and I personally don't like crunch in my cake. Alright, so I'm just going to go around that edge. I'm not going to add that to my cake pops because it is a bit too crunchy. I'm going to turn the top over and I'm going to support it with my hand there, and I'm going to cut another flat edge. That's going to meet up with our base when we're ready. Notice how I've cut across this way and then I've come around to make that final sort of incision. It just helps you to get that top piece off nice and neatly once again without pulling any of the edges away. Now's a good time for a bit of a tidy up before we move on to the next step. Okay, so I've tidied up my workspace and I've made sure that I've got nice, clean, dry hands for this next step. I'm going to take the bottom half of my clean, dry, giant cupcake case, and I'm also going to take the giant chocolate patty pan that we made in part 1 of the tutorials. With clean, dry hands, I'm just going to slide that back into the mould, just matching it up. Now this is so that we avoid touching the outsides of that patty pan. It does mark quite easily if you touch it too much, especially if you've got a little bit of icing or something on your fingers. So this will not only protect the outsides of our patty pan and keep it looking lovely and crisp, but it will also add just a little bit more support to that patty pan as we fill it with the base of the giant cupcake. Place that to the side. I have my pre-carved cupcake here, so I'm just going to separate it into those 2 layers that we cut. And I'm going to take some of my buttercream frosting. I like to use a spatula to do this. So I'm just going to take liberal amounts of buttercream frosting and I'm just going to spread it onto the cupcake there. This is also a good time if you'd like to add any little surprises into your giant cupcake. Marshmallows, raspberries, chocolate chips, anything else you might want to pop in there for a bit of variety. I'm going to put that on about 1 centimetre or so thick. Lovely. And then I'm just going to place that lid back on again. I'm going to take my palette knife, alternatively the back of your butter knife, and I'm going to take some more of that buttercream frosting and I'm just going to use it to slide around the inside of that patty pan. Now this is going to give us a nice sticky surface for that giant cupcake to stick to. Make sure that when you cut the cupcake, the patty pan doesn't fall away from the edges. So you don't have to be terribly neat with this. Just be gentle when you're handling that giant cupcake case. You don't want to crack it at this stage and have to go back and make another one. Now the spatula is great for the bottom because it's flexible. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of that buttercream on the bottom as well, just so we've got something to adhere that base to. Beautiful. All right, now we're going to pop the base into that giant patty pan. So I'm going to pick it up with both hands on both sides, supporting the base of it, and I'm just going to slowly drop it in. You can see there it goes in a little bit unevenly. I'm going to take this palette knife or your butter knife and I'm just going to squeeze this little side here in and then just push it down on top. Beautiful. Now I'm going to take that top of our cupcake and I'm just going to sit it on top. As you can see there, it's on a bit of an angle, so this is a great time for you to even up your cuts. If I have a look at that, I need to take a little bit more with my bread knife away from the top on this side, so I was a little bit high on that side. I can see here that I'm a little bit uneven, so I'm just going to shave away a little bit more. Let's try that. All right, that's looking pretty good. Pop that to the side and I'm going to take my spatula once again and apply some more buttercream. Now this buttercream I'm actually going to apply over the edges here a little bit so that it is going to the outside of that patty pan. Don't worry if it looks a little bit messy. We've got our silicone case protecting that patty pan there for us. So. See, I'm being quite liberal with that buttercream, and I'm actually pushing it into the sides a little bit there. Once again, about 1 centimetre or so thick. Smooth it out. And I'm going to take my top and just sit it on top. Beautiful. Now this is a good time, with your top especially, if you do have any areas that you feel are missing large amounts, or if you've lost a side somewhere along the way, you can fill those with those offcuts that we took out earlier. So to fill them, you just want to pop a little bit of buttercream so there's something to stick to. We'll take one of our offcuts, This is one of the ones that we took off earlier. Just break off a bit and stick it in. If it's just a little hole, it doesn't matter so much, but if you're worried about it, you can just fill it in. Now time for the crumb coat. You can see here, we've still got a little bit of space in between the frosting and the top, so we do want to fill that in. I find the spatula the best to fill that in with, so I'm going to go around and just spatula in some globs, I suppose you'd call them, of buttercream to get into those gaps. Alright, now the crumb coat is essentially designed to pick up and stick down any crumbs to stop them from going into your final coat of icing. So you can see here we've got quite a few crumbs going through that lovely white frosting. Not a problem at all. With a crumb coat, I like to use the back of my palette knife. Once again, you can use your bread knife, your butter knife, and you just work it backwards and forwards on an angle. So angle away and then angle towards. That's just going to smooth into all of your little holes, cracks and crevices, and it's going to give you a lovely, neat finish, and it's going to trap all of those crumbs in there. I want to do that all the way to the top. Going to smooth away around the edges. Essentially, this cupcake is now ready for you to decorate in any colour, any frosting, anything that you like. I am just going to show you how to peel away the silicone base from that patty pan to get it out again. Make sure that you have clean hands when you do this once again, because we don't want to be marking that base any more than you have to, and I would suggest transferring it straight onto a spinning turntable or a cake decorating turntable, or a Lazy Susan if you don't have a cake decorating table, so that you don't have to move it too much. And you can see I'm just rolling that down, rolling it down much the same as what we did to get both the patty pan and the giant cupcake out. Curl it around a little bit the edges. Now with clean hands, I'm just going to take both sides of that giant cupcake, I'm going to lift it out. There you have your giant cupcake, ready to go. Thank you for watching.